with 4 places and Wooin suggests them split up and search the places separately. Jiwoo asks them to get in touch with one another after checking those places. In Hyuk and Seonga are worried about them and can't reach any one of them, and they have the doubt that they shook off the agents. Seonga guesses that they are probably in search of the professor and not aware that the Klein brothers escaped as well. 2 agents find the professor and are shocked to see there is another one aside from the professor, and he hypnotizes them as they have seen nothing and go back to another place. Jiwoo reaches the place that Wooin told him, but he finds nothing there and thinks to inform the others about that when he hears an explosion. On the other hand, Mr. Caden is trying to contact him, but he is not picking up his call. The explosion was from the awakened powers of Klein's brother, who has killed many agents in just one attack. All the other agents think they should isolate the place and prevent any further damage until backup arrives because they can't put up a fight against him. Their head asks them to get to their positions and activates their spatial isolation devices, but before that, Klein's brother attacks them. Jiwoo reaches there and holds her hand. He recognizes Jiwoo and pushes him back while Jiwoo is shocked to see him as he was arrested, so how he can be outside. The agents apologize to him that they can't help him to fight because they need to spread out and isolate this place. The Klein brother is attacking Jiwoo, but this time his attacks are not working on him, and it seems like the durability of his body has been increased. He again attacks him, but Jisuk comes there and blocks his attack. Jiwoo asks him to stall him so he can move those people who are passed out. Jisuk attacks him, but he is way stronger than him and blocks his attacks easily. Meanwhile, Subin also reaches there and is shocked to see such destruction. In the meantime, Jiwoo moved all the people and the Clean brother makes so much destruction there. On the other hand, the other one tries to attack the agents when Hyuk reaches there and saves them, and asks him about his elder brother. He orders all the agents to spread out and contain the area, and uses an immense amount of energy to attack him. Soon, he takes him down and makes his condition even worse than before. On the other side, Jiwoo, Subin, and Jisuk are fighting with the other brother, but he is much stronger than them. He is one of the notorious criminals, and he is fighting against all 3 of them like it's nothing. Jiwoo tells them that he will fight him in close proximity, and they too attack him with all their might. Jisuk asks him to hold him off until he and Subin gather enough power to attack him. Jiwoo moves forward to attack him while they are gathering powers and attacking him again and again without giving him a chance to get stable. Jisuk and Subin attack with their powers while Jiwoo is holding him, and there is a sudden explosion. They think they have beaten him up but are all shocked when he again gets up and is ready to attack. On the other hand, Mr. Caden is running to find Jiwoo as he is unable to contact him and he thinks something must happen to him. While Klein's brother wonders why all 3 of them have such exceptional powers when they are only in their late teens, and he wants to take them with him, but in this situation, it seems impossible. Jisuk suggests to him that they should part there and go on their way, and Subin also agrees with him. He judges from Subin's use of ice that she is from the Union and Jisuk is from Shinhwa, and that he has to pay both groups back for what they have done to him, and plans to kill both of them. He attacks them with a stronger power than before, but they are unable to block him, while Jiwoo uses his super speed, but he catches him up and attacks him. Jiwoo gets seriously injured and is unable to move from his place. He then moves towards Subin and tries to kill her, but Jisuk reaches him and attacks him. Subin attacks him with ice, but his awakened power is fire, so it melts all of a sudden and he falls to the ground. He then tries to burn her while Jiwoo is trying to move. On the other side, the professor is leaving with his companion when Wooin reaches there and he is shocked to see him come back to them. Jisuk asks him why he wants to kill them, as it was his sister who locked him up, so he should go fight her instead. He then attacks Jisuk and says Jiyoung's expression will change when she finds out that her brother died a miserable death. Jiwoo is trying to get some power from force control when Jisuk asks him to run away from there, but he thinks he will never leave his friends behind and again gets up to fight. While Klein's brother says none of them can beat him even at their best, and Jiwoo has the energy for just a single strike and it will barely be enough to get him through his flames. Meanwhile, Mr. Caden finds him and is shocked to see that they are again fighting with a criminal, and that Jiwoo is trying to give it one last shot, but he is not fast enough to get through the fire and knock him out. Jisuk gives him a stream of wind so that he can move faster to attack him. Meanwhile, Subin weakened the fire by using an opposing alarm, and now it's time for Jiwoo to go. His friends made this chance for him, so he has to go through it even though his whole body breaks up. He reaches him and attacks him with his full might and finally succeeded to take him down. He gets unconscious and falls to the ground while Jiwoo also gets unconscious. Mr. Caden is watching all this and appreciates their trick to help Jiwoo. They go to Jiwoo and ask him if he is alright, and he replies that his arm hurts really badly and has no energy left to move. He He then asks them to find Wooin because he might also be in danger. Come to Wooin and asks the professor about what happened at the Union, but the professor doesn't reply and asks his companion to move, but he asks him to take Wooin with them, and this is what the professor didn't want because Wooin's life will get in danger if he accompanies them. Moreover, he says they can't leave a witness behind, but Professor attacks Wooin just to show him and asks him to move right now. But Lobern says he wants to make sure that he is dead just in case he survived his attack. Before he attacks Wooin, the professor attacks him from behind, and he is now sure that Wooin is his apprentice and that he is just trying to save him. He asks the professor how he dares hide such a thing from them. Plus, when the higher-ups find out, he and his apprentice will go through well, but the professor warns him that he will kill him if he touches Wooin. Lobern hypnotized Wooin and he starts to attack the professor while he is just trying to block his attacks. He thinks he has to Wooin under his control and has to give his best to overpower him. He promised himself that he would never hurt him, but he has to do it right now and takes him down while Wooin gets seriously injured. But he again gets up and attacks the professor, and Lobern is getting happy to see all this. After a while, Mr. Seongher reaches there and is shocked to see Wooin and thinks something about him seems off. Lobern asks him who is he, and when Seongha introduces himself, he says he has never heard about him before. The professor says he will take care of Wooin and he must deal with Lobern, and Seongha agrees on this. The professor takes Wooin separately from there so Lobern doesn't get a chance to mess with Wooin. Meanwhile, Seongha attacks him with his awakened powers and isolates the whole space while Lobern is shocked to see his power. He asks him if he was the one who invaded the Union and made a mess there, and he tries to hypnotize him, but Seongha attacks him before that and takes him down. On the other side, when the professor is running by taking Wooin, he pushes him back and attacks him. He thinks it would be best for Wooin that he dies there, as he is nothing but a worthless piece of scum to Wooin. He is about to attack him when Mr. Caden comes from nowhere and sits on Wooin's shoulder. He punches him and takes him down and shouts at the professor why he was just trying to die by Wooin's hands. If he really thinks he will be able to live that he killed his mentor, then would Jiwoo have been okay watching his friend suffer? After a while, Seongher reaches there and thinks the professor took him down, while Mr. Caden appears from behind and warns him that he is watching him. He then asks Seongha to take him back to the Union. After that, he investigates him, and the professor revealed that the opponents sent Lobern to find him after they stopped hearing from Klein's brother. And Seongha asks him when he made a deal with the Union, so why did he join hands with Lobern and escaped? He did this because of Wooin, because they probably target Wooin the next time or a hostage to control him. He admits that he did something wrong and is ready to deal with the consequences, but they should leave Wooin out of this. On the other side, the three are in the hospital while Jisuk and Subin are fighting as usual, and Mr. Caden and Jiwoo are enjoying their fight. Meanwhile, Wooin is lying in the hospital unconscious, and the doctor reveals that he has a skull fracture. He also broke his neck, so he needs complete bed rest for a while, and they are all shocked to hear this. When he wakes up, Jiwoo asks him if he met his professor, and he just remembers when he was going. The next day, the teacher comes to visit them, and they all tell him that they got into an accident. He says that he got confused because they have gotten into several accidents already, while Jiwoo says it's the first for Subin. Meanwhile, In-hyuk reaches there and greets the teacher and tells him that he was the one who called him several times and told him about their accidents. After that, he feeds snacks to Mr. Caden and tells Jiwoo that Jiyoung wants to see him in her office as she has something to talk to him about. Mr. Suman took permission from Jiyoung to bring Seokjeol with him, who seems very happy with the decision. Suddenly, he sees Jiwoo there and asks about Jisuk, and In-hyuk tells him that he is a new awakened that had found recently. When Jiwoo refuses to tell him about Jisuk, he challenges him with a spar, and Jiwoo accepts it instead of the several injuries he has. They both reach the fighting ground, and Jiyoung is unable to understand why this is happening. Seokjeol wants to show them all how strong he is. They both are ready to fight, and Jiwoo guesses from his posture that maybe he fights in a close range or he tricks people that way and fights from a distance. Mr. Suman asks In-hyuk to stop him as he is wounded pretty badly, but In-hyuk assures him that Jiwoo will be alright because he is the one who defeated Suchin back in the academy. And he surely confirms that when Jiwoo defeats Seokjeol in just one attack with one hand only. After that, he goes to meet Jiyoung, and she apologizes for not telling him that the Klein brothers had escaped as they thought the truth will shake him up, so they try to protect him while keeping that information from him. But Jiwoo says it was his fault because he gave her agents the slip knowing they were only to protect him. She appreciates him that he is getting stronger by the second. With Caden as his mentor, he will get even stronger. While leaving her office, he praises her by saying the dress looks well on her and comes back to ask her about the snacks bar as they all told him to bring some snacks for them. She herself goes with him and buys snacks for them, and Jiwoo invites her to come and eat with them, and she agrees. On the other side, In-hyuk goes to her office and is surprised because she was not there while she is carrying bags for Jiwoo. When they go inside, Jisuk and Subin are fighting and stop to see Jiwon there. They are all eating snacks and they are shocked to see Wooin, who is eating more than all. At night, Jiyoung went to drop Jiwoo home as she thinks he is still healing and is discharging too early, but Jiwoo is much worried about his cats. When he gets home, he is training so hard than before, and Mr. Caden asks him why he is pushing himself so hard. Jiwoo reveals he felt so pathetic when Jisuk and Subin were on the brink of death while he just had to sit, and his heart was going to burst when Jisuk told him to run away because he was too weak. Mr. Caden assures him that he will help him reach his goal, and then puts his power into Jiwoo so he can feel how to move and use his powers. The next day in the hospital, Jisuk and Subin are on the 5th floor and challenge each other. Whoever reaches the 1st floor first wins, and the one who loses will become the winner's slave for a week. They promised Wooin that the winner will buy him snacks, but In-hyuk reaches there and says if their goal is to reach the 1st floor, then he can throw them out of the window. On the other side, Mr. Suman reveals that Baekdu was behind helping those criminals, and now he fears that Shinhwa and Union will find out sooner because they are doing their investigations. Meanwhile, Suchin's father reaches there and he learns about his defeat in the academy. He apologizes to him by saying he was caught off guard, but he attacks his own son and punishes him. Suman reaches there and holds Suchon while forbidding Supal to do so, but he says his mistake is not forgettable. He then asks Suchon to prove that he will not lose to anyone if he doesn't let his guard down and make sure no one gets to mess with him. The next morning, Jiwoo is feeding the stray cats when Suchon appears there and states he wants to talk to him. He challenges Jiwoo for a spar, not right now but after 10 days, and this time, they will not settle on simply who wins and loses but fight until one of them becomes incapable of combat. Moreover, Jiwoo can't say no because this is also an order from his father, the chairman of Baekdu, and he will do whatever he can to bring him down. When he had left, Jiwoo asks Mr. Caden what should he do now, and he replies he just has to train hard like he always does. They all are shocked when they learn about his spar with Suchon while they are informed when Baekdu contacted Shinhwa for their ring, and they all are worried about him as they know Suchon will not let his guard down this time. When he comes back home, Jiyoung was already there waiting for him, and she is worried about him the spar as it will not be that friendly and one of them will get severely injured. She then asks him to come to Shinhwa first thing in the morning tomorrow as she will help him with his training. Mr. Caden says it will be great for him if he learns from Jiyoung too because she is known as the strongest awakened one in Korea, and he shouldn't miss a chance to learn from someone as talented as her. The next day, he goes to Shinhwa where Jiyoung is waiting for him and states that they don't have the time to teach him anything, so they will train by having practice fights. She uses similar skills that were used by Suchon by creating a stream of wind that is crushing him down. She states that she is not an expert at using these skills as other strong gravitational awakened ones, but it's enough to mimic Suchon. She then asks her to show how he will deal with them, and Jiwoo uses his super speed to reach her but couldn't even touch her. At night, when he gets back home, falls down as he was too much tired. He tells Mr. Caden that none of his skills worked on her, while Mr. Caden says she has been talented and strong since little but still nothing compared to him. He asks Jiwoo to get some rest and get back to training, and later, he uses force control to regain his powers. On the other side, Suchon is getting trained by his father who is treating him so hard. Finally, the day to spar has come and Mr. Caden is looking down as he has an awful stomachache. Jiwoo says he can go by himself, but Caden wants to go with him as the spar is most important. He wants to go with him. In-hyuk takes him to the Shinhwa where they are all waiting for him and asks them to go to the ring. Jiyoung asks them to make a deal before the fight that they will not spar again regardless of the result, and Mr. Supal agrees by thinking Suchon will settle this once and for all. Suchon intends to crush him down in today's sparring as his father told him to do so. Mr. Supal says Jiwoo should use his other awakened power to commune with animals to fight against Suchon, and Mr. Caden sits behind Jiwoo during the spar. They start fighting and Suchon spreads his powers more than before and gets stronger and pressuring the whole room with gravity to slow Jiwoo down. Jiwoo is focusing his power on a target that's been slowed down, but he is getting dragged into the floor and is unable to move within the boundary of Suchon's power. But he disappeared within a second and punches him with a strong force. Suchon is shocked that he has gotten stronger than before. Suchon is trying to slow him down, but Jiwoo is way quicker than him and his gravitational force is not affecting him. Mr. Caden smirks that the old Jiwoo would have been pinned down by the gravity field, but not the Jiwoo now. Suchon will have no choice but to collect his gravity field up and focus all his power on Jiwoo to hold him down. But the thing is, without the field, Jiwoo will be able to move with more ease, which will make it harder for Suchin to keep up with his speed. This is not about who is more powerful, it's about who is better at fighting in combat. Suchin doesn't have the talent or the experience to overcome Jiwoo's level of combat ability. He attacks Jiwoo with so much power that it makes a crash into the floor. If Jiyoung hadn't trained him, he would have been brought down by that skill. He wonders when he improved so much so fast and thinks if he catches him just once, he will shatter him into pieces. He decreases the range and increases the power. Still, it's not enough to catch up to Jiwoo's speed. He then asks Jiwoo why he is dragging this out and let's settle this once and for all. This time, he is prepared for Jiwoo's electric skill and his barriers incomparably stronger than before, but this is the only skill he can use to get through his power anyway. He moves forward and attacks him with his full might, and Suchin gets defeated and has been incapacitated. Hyuk announces that the sparring ended there and congratulates Jiwoo on his wins. Mr. Supel is feeling so much embarrassed and refuses to take Suchon to the hospital. He asks what Shinhwa's motive is to train that kid in the sky, as they are training an awakened one in secret without registering him. Jiwoo states he is misunderstanding the situation as they didn't train him and registered him the moment they found him. He notices Shinhwa cares a lot about him so much to give him private lessons, while Jiyoung says they simply doing their best as his sponsor. Hyuk also reveals that he fought with the Klein brothers 2 times, and they get shocked to hear this, but Mr. Supel still doesn't believe how he can be so strong. Suddenly, Kaden appears there and states Jiwoo is so strong because he is his apprentice, and asks Mr. Supel what is wrong with Jiwoo being so strong. He gets embarrassed and asks Suman to take Suchin to the hospital and tells Jiyoung that they will have a serious talk about this. Kaden says it was not her fault as all the instructors at the academy knew about it, but he leaves without saying anything. This time, Jiwoo is feeling satisfied as he took down an opponent who was fully prepared for the fight and wasn't caught off guard this time. Hyuk apologizes to Kaden as he had no choice but to tell the chairwoman about him and Jiwoo, while Kaden is wondering why he wasn't giving him snacks like he always does, as he forgot for a moment that he is not a cat. Jiyoung asks him how long he is planning to stay in Korea, and Kaden replies he just come there to see Jiwoo's big sparring. On the other side, Suchin is getting scared of his father as his defeat is a humiliation for Baekdu, but Suman asks him to not worry and learn from the defeats and work harder. He then goes to Supel and requests him not to be too hard on Suchin because his opponent was Kaden's apprentice, and he walks away by saying to keep Suchin out of his sight forever. At night, Jisuk, Subin, and Wooin come to his home and shout at him about why he didn't tell them about his spar and ask him about the results. And when he tells them that he won the fight, they all get very happy and laugh at Suchin's condition. They all come inside his home while chatting, and Mr. Kaden was sitting on the sofa there. They all get shocked to see him, and Jisuk and Subin are meeting him for the first time. Jiwoo introduces him as his mentor and introduces them all to Kaden. Jisuk is nervous as he thinks he has met him before, also his voice sounds familiar, but Kaden says they are meeting for the first time. After some time, he asks Jiwoo about casein nitrate, and Jiwoo replies he went for a walk. Subin asks him if he is Jiwoo's mentor, then his power should be super speed, while Kaden says he just teaches him force control and other things. Subin and Jisuk say Jiwoo's electrical attribute is his influence, and Subin reveals that everyone was all about how electrical attribute needs to be re-evaluated, and this was all because of one person, whose name was Kaden. Jisuk reveals Kaden is also known for his nasty temper, and that he smashes anyone who gets on his nerves, and they are glad that he is not in Korea. Jiwoo reveals the person they are talking about is his mentor, Kaden. They both are in so much shock that Subin falls her noodles on Kaden. They get panic and are terrified that he will kill them for that. After that, they bow before him and ask for forgiveness. He forgives them and tells Jiwoo that he is going now. When he has left, Wooin reveals that he knew already as he ran into him a few times, and they get offended and start to beat him up. The next morning, Jiwoo is training when Mr. Kaden is instructing him to try to work on combat skills. Suddenly, he asks him to stop because he feels the kid's presence outside the house. They enter his house while Jisuk and Subin are laughing. On being inquired, Subin tells him that Jisuk called and provokes Gangseok yesterday out of nowhere, the one who was in the academy. He calls Jisuk, who asks him to not call him again as he doesn't want to talk to him, and if he wants to fight him, he has to beat Suchin and Jiwoo first. After hanging up, they both laughed a lot, and Subin reveals that ever since she met his mentor, she can't stop thinking about him, then asks casein nitrate if he met Mr. Kaden because he was just her type. She wishes Kaden would be single, and when he will come she will tell him about her feelings. They were chatting when Gangseok reaches there, and they think he comes there to fight Jisuk. Jisuk asks him how did he find them all, but he tells Jiwoo that he has come here to spar with him after hearing that he defeated Suchon. Jiwoo agrees by saying they will have official sparring soon and invites him for lunch. At night, Jiwoo was going home to take snacks for the cats when he saw a boy standing in front of his home and asking him about Kaden. On the other side, a man comes to Suman's office and informs him that some high-risk criminals have sneaked into the country. Supal is aware of this but kept quiet, which means Baekdu helped them enter the country. Come to Jiwoo. He tells that man that he doesn't know anything about Kaden, but he already knows that Jiwoo is Kaden's apprentice. Jiwoo tries to run off, but he catches him up in just a moment and punches him. He also knows that Jiwoo's power is super speed but says he can't run away from him. Jiwoo tries to attack him but both of his power and speed are no match for him. At last, he tries to give his best shot with the last attack but he blocks it too and calls him a disappointment for Kaden's apprentice. He grabs Jiwoo by the neck and lifts him in the air and asks for the last time about Kaden. Jiwoo says he doesn't know about him and attacks him so badly that he gets unconscious. He then takes him to his companion and thinks Kaden will show up for him, but the other one says Kaden will not make a move just for an apprentice. They just need to appear in front of them and they know that he is injured, so they want to find him before he recovers. On the other side, Kaden is waiting for Jiwoo and wonders why he is taking so long to come. He texted him but Jiwoo doesn't reply. He gets worried about him and went outside to look for him. He checks him up on all of his routes but Jiwoo is not there. He then thinks they maybe missed each other on the way, so he should go home and checked, but when he gets back home, Jiwoo is not there. When Jiwoo gets into consciousness, he finds himself tied up and there are two men standing in front of him. One of them asks him where Kaden is but he again replies that he doesn't know. He threatens him by saying he will start breaking all of his bones one by one, then crush his muscles and ligaments, and most of the awakened ones spill everything they know when he is about halfway through it. He tortured him so badly that Jiwoo's one arm got completely crushed, but he didn't say a single word about Kaden. He says now he will start from his second arm and it will be more painful than what he went through. All he needs to tell him about two things, where Kaden is and whether he is in good or bad shape. He comes back after some time and starts torturing him again. On the other side, Kaden goes to Jiyoung and tells her that Jiwoo is missing and Inhyuk informs them that the other kids also don't know where Jiwoo is. Kaden gets up to find him when Jiyoung gives him a phone to reach out to him when they get any leads on Jiwoo. She then orders Inhyuk to find him by all means possible. Kaden is searching for him at all the possible places and finds a place where there are signs of someone using awakened powers, and this is a skill that assassins use to cover their tracks. They torture Jiwoo so much but he didn't utter a single word. He then asks him to make a deal that if Jiwoo teaches them Kaden's force control, and they will let him go. But Jiwoo again replies the same, that he will never tell him anything. He gets offended by this and hits Jiwoo's head onto the ground. Meanwhile, his other companion comes and informs him about Kaden and he asks him to get ready to welcome him. But it was Suman who entered there and recognizes Jiwoo and shouts at them why they kidnapped Jiwoo of all people. On the other side, Inhyuk rushes to Jiyoung's office and tells her that Mr. Suman asked all of them to reach the address he sent as soon as possible, while Mr. Suman created spatial isolation to fight with both of them. One of them attacks him but Suman easily blocks his attack. They both come to attack together but his awakened power is way stronger than both of them, and he pushes them away. They both are shocked to see his awakened powers and that he is using a gravitational field to push them back. Suman thinks it might be dangerous for Jiwoo if he fights there, so he knocked down the building to take Jiwoo in the first place. He is shocked to see Jiwoo's condition and asks them why they tortured a kid. They should be ashamed of themselves. They both are attacking him at the same time and this is getting difficult for him to deal with both of them at once. Plus, he has to protect Jiwoo at the same time. While they think they have to get rid of him before Kaden comes, but soon Kaden comes there and is shocked to see Jiwoo's condition. Jiwoo tells him that he didn't tell them about him or the force control that he taught him and will never going to tell anyone even if he dies. He asks Suman to take Jiwoo and stay back and they both have to pay the price for calling him out like this. One of them makes fun of that they already know he is injured and not in a condition to compete with them and that he has to go down today. But they are shocked when the ground suddenly starts to crumble and there was an immense amount of energy that took both of them down. He then turns toward the one who tortured Jiwoo and gives him an electric shock and tortures him so much that he begged for his life. When he killed the one, then asked the other why he is not coming to attack him. He replies that he has realized killing him is still beyond his capacity. Kaden says this is the last time he is letting him off the hook. Next time if he messes with his apprentice, he will make sure he pays for it. He then comes to Suman and takes Jiwoo from him and says he owes him one and returns the favor sometime. He takes Jiwoo to the hospital and the doctor reveals that he is in terrible shape. They may be able to treat the visible scars, but due to several internal injuries, he will not be able to control his power even after he recovers. His arms are another problem, and he will be able to live a normal life even without his awakened power, but his arms are badly destroyed, and it will be difficult to get them back to the way they were. Moreover, whoever did this used their awakened power to cause him pain, and they got their purpose. The lingering pain must still be pretty bad, so it's their first priority to reduce his pain. Ji-young asked Kaden what exactly happened to him, and he tells her that those were after he kidnapped Ji-woo and tortured him to get information about him. On the other side, Supul calls Suman and asks him why he helped Kaden and Ji-woo, and he replies he just happened there and saw them torturing Ji-woo, so helped him. When Ji-woo wakes up, he asks Kaden about his cats, and he reveals that he has fed them all. He tells him that he can't move his arm at all and can't do the force control, and Kaden reveals that his life as an awakened one is over now. Ji-woo thinks this wouldn't have happened if he has been a little stronger, but Kaden says he was not a match for them. He comes outside the room and asks In Hyuk and Ji-young to find the man who leaked information about Ji-woo. The next day, when Ji-woo woke up, all three were standing beside him and asked about his health. They are shocked when Ji-woo tells them that he will not be able to use his awakened power anymore, and that his arms will not function properly. They ask him to focus on recovery and consider himself lucky that he is alive. They go to Ji-young and ask her if it is true that Ji-woo will never go back to the way he was, and she confirms it by saying he was severely tortured when he was kidnapped. His body is so battered that he will not be able to gather awakened power or move it even after the treatment is over. Subin says she can ask Union for help and they can find any way to treat him, but she replies it will be of no use. Supul and Suman also get informed that Kaden's apprentice has lost his ability as an awakened one because the severe torture caused irreversible damage to his body, and Shinhwa asked them to send one of their healers. On the other side, Wooin went to meet the professor and bows before him by saying he has a favor to ask and requests him to heal Ji-woo. Wooin tells him the whole story, and the professor reveals that he will not be able to heal him either. Kaden thinks this all happened because of him, because if he had been at his best, those people wouldn't have dared to challenge him in the first place. The next morning, the professor goes to the hospital to check on Ji-woo. When he gets inside his room, he thanks Ji-woo as he always wanted to thank him for getting along with Wooin. Ji-woo says he got along with Wooin because he liked him as his friend. The professor is going to start examining his body and asks him not to fight against his powers and just accept them. After examining him, he says he doesn't want to give him hope, but he is going to give it his best shot. He used his awakened power to catch some sleep so that he can feel less pain. In Hyuk informs Ji-young that the professor says it will take some time until the results come out, and he really hopes that Ji-woo recovers. Suddenly, a man rushes to the room and informs them that they have found one of the kidnappers. Ji-young goes to the home and asks him if he is one of the people who kidnapped Ji-woo, while he says why she is asking when she already knows the answer. Ji-young says she is going to make him pay for messing with someone under Shinhwa's protection. Come to the professor is treating Ji-woo when Kaden comes and stands behind him. Ji-young creates spatial information, and the kidnapper feels she is stronger than the vice chairman of Baekdu. He makes his first move to attach her but couldn't even touch her as she has created a wind attribute around her. His arm gets injured in trying to attack her, and he recognizes her as the first ranker of Korea. He heals himself and again comes to attack, but this time again fails. Ji-young appears from behind and attacks him with so much wind attribute that his whole body is burnt. In Hyuk comes there and she asks him to investigate him and takes out the information on who helped him and his partner enter the country. They investigate him and it is revealed that his code name is Amyong and the level of his power is unknown. After consequently assassinating the awakened ones in the top 200, he made name for himself as the Ranker Hunter. A few days ago, he illegally entered the country with another international criminal named Dran, who was killed by Kaden. After a while, Kaden reaches there and asks them if they have caught Amyong. Then Hyuk replies they have caught him and investigated him also but didn't get anything, and Kaden already knows that forcing him to disclose information is next to impossible. He goes to him and asks him how he got his hands on the information about him and Ji-woo and who helped them get into this country. He asks him why he took the kid as one of all people, as there were many people who showed loyalty to him but he never took any of them. Kaden replies that he was different from others and didn't want anything from him, and this is all his reason. Amyong reveals he bought information from the market and didn't know who sold it, and Dran came along only because they had just finished a job together. All he knows about the people who helped them enter the country are fairly a big group. The next morning, Mr. Supul comes to visit Shinhwa to inquire about Ji-woo's health, and asks Ji-young if he caught the one responsible for making the mess yesterday, and get any information from him, but Hyuk replies that he refused to answer any of their questions. It's been 3 days since the professor went to Jiwoo's room but didn't come back, and they all are waiting outside. Suddenly, Isol appears there and asks Subin about Jiwoo's condition and if he really will not be able to use his awakened power. They all keep silent, which means this is true. On the other side, Supal calls Suman to his office, and when he reaches there he sees Supal has killed his secretary and asks him why he is keeping tabs on him. Suman says he knows that he helped the kidnappers to enter the country, and that he is trying to weaken the power of awakened ones and groups in Korea using the frame and criminals. Supal states if his plan succeeds and Baekdu becomes the strongest group in Korea, they will not have to worry about the others. Suman tries to convince him that he is doing wrong, but Supal says he is telling him the truth only because he is the vice chairman of Baekdu, not because he wants his opinion, and Suman has to just follow his orders. He asks him to prove his loyalty to him by killing his secretary, but he refuses to do so, and he will not follow his orders, kill his subordinate, or work with an outside criminal organization. Supal expels him from Baekdu on the charge of defying the chairman's order and spying on him. Suman exclaims he will be the one who should leave Baekdu and shows him his mobile by saying Jiyoung was listening to their whole conversation. Supal gets offended and tries to execute Suman at the moment when Kaden reaches there and isolates the whole area. He then shouts and calls Supal out, and Suman hurriedly takes out his secretary to a safe place. He yells at his men to not try to fight him and evacuate the place at the spot. Supal yells at Kaden about how dare he declares war on Baekdu, while he replies Supal was the one who started it and now he has to pay for messing with him. Supal thinks it may be a hassle, but this could be a chance for him and he can get rid of him. He creates a huge sphere of gravitational force to attack Kaden, but just took down by a single electric shock. He uses his secret weapon, the gravity hole, that is handed down only to the leaders of Baekdu, and exclaims no matter how much of a great awakened one he is, he will not make it out alive once you get trapped in this. Kaden gets worried as gravity is restraining his movements and tries to pull him down. Supal thinks he has been swallowed by a hole, but is shocked when Kaden appears from inside the hole and walks out of the gravity hole alive. Kaden says he will now show him why the world's top 10 avoided fighting with him, and Supal is in a state of shock. How can an awakened one be this powerful? He then attacks him with immense energy and the whole building collapsed and is crushed down. Suman calls them and tells them that Kaden has killed the Supal with his own hands and that Baekdu will take full responsibility for his wrong deeds. Hyuk is shocked as Supal was one of the stronger awakened and got killed by Kaden, which means how strong he is. Seonga is at the point that if Baekdu takes responsibility for what happened, then it will reduce their country's power even more, and this will be a big loss for the country. The professor comes out of Jiwoo's room and is shocked to learn that they are all there the whole time, and reveals that he couldn't heal him fully. He is now able to move his arms, however, he wasn't able to fix his core. It will be less painful now, but still he will feel the pain now and then. They are a little relieved that at least his arms are healed, so he can now go back to a normal life. They bow before the professor and thank him. When he was leaving, Kaden was there waiting for him, and the professor tells him that his ability was not enough to fix his core. They go inside Jiwoo's room and Jisuk asks him if he can move his arms now, and he replies he can move a little now. After a while, Kaden arrives there and they all leave the room immediately. Kaden inquired about his health and Jiwoo tells him that he is feeling less pain now. Kaden tells him about Supal and that he has to get rid of him. Jiwoo says he got to meet him and the other friends just because of his powers, and now when he realizes he will not be an awakened one, he feels like he may be losing friends too, which makes him sad and upset. After some time, Kaden calls a man named Kurtine and asks him for help. He is shocked that how Kaden can ask for help. He exclaims Kaden has to give him something in return, and Kaden promises him to pass his force control in return. On the other side, Seonga gets informed that Amyong escaped while he was being transported from Shinhwa to Union, and 4 of their men were knocked unconscious and are being treated at the hospital. When Jiwoo wakes up, he sees Amyong standing beside him. He tells him that there were many awakened ones who wanted to be Kaden's apprentice, and that Jiwoo has no idea how great Kaden is, and now he is in danger because of him. Until now, those who were after Kaden didn't dare to challenge him, but since he became his weakness, his enemies will use him to kill him. He wonders why Kaden is risking his life for someone like him whose life as an awakened one is over now. Jiwoo asks him to kill him as that is what he can there to do, and thinks he can't let Mr. Kaden be in danger because of him. Amyong grabs his neck and realizes Jiwoo really wants to die. He releases Jiwoo and leaves his room while Kaden is standing outside there, but he leaves without saying anything. Kaden goes inside and tells Jiwoo that he came to check on you after hearing about Amyoung's escape, and they sat with each other without saying anything. Hyuk informs Jiyoung that Amyoung stopped by Jiwoo's hospital room, but he has been nowhere to be found since then. They have heard other news that Kurtin is on the move, but according to the source, he might be headed to Korea. He reaches Kaden and asks him to heal his apprentice. A man rushes to Jiyoung's office and informs her that Kurtin showed up at the hospital. Meanwhile, Kaden takes him to Jiwoo's room and he is shocked to see Jiwoo as his apprentice. He uses his power to examine Jiwoo's condition. He then asks him to lie down and accepts his powers so he can thoroughly check his condition, and reveals that the main issue is his shattered core. But like this, he can't gather and move his awakened power anymore. He asks Kaden if he has a head injury, as he is asking him to restore a broken core, which is impossible to fix it once it's broken. Kaden says if he can't heal Jiwoo, then he doesn't have any business with him, and then he utters that it is not impossible for him. Jiwoo says he wants to talk to Mr. Kurtin privately and asks Kaden to go outside. When he left, he then asks Kurtin to make the room soundproof. He then blocks the whole room with his powers so their voices will not be heard now. Jiwoo says he doesn't want to receive the treatment even if Mr. Kaden insists to, but he shouldn't listen to him. He asks him what Kaden offered him in return to heal him and is shocked when he tells it's his force control. Jiwoo says he will never get treatment after hearing it, and Kurtin will respect his decision. He comes outside and asks Kaden to take him home as he wants some rest before going back. Kaden takes him to Jiwoo's house and Kurtin is shocked to see him with cats and acting so much weird. He is about to feed the cats when there is a sudden flash and Kaden again turned into a cat's body while Kurtin is in a state of shock. Kaden is so much embarrassed and thinks he was the last person he would ever show this, and now he will make his fun for a lifetime. He thinks Kaden has unlimited awakened power that he intentionally turned into an animal. He asks Kaden to get back to his human form while Kaden says it will take energy to maintain his original form, so he might as well stay like this. Kurtin gets irritated as he thinks Kaden is just trying to show off his powers. Hyuk and Jiyoung go to Jiwoo and he tells him that he refused to get treated by Kurtin because Kaden promised something big in return and called him. Kurtin informs Kaden that Jiwoo refused to receive treatment on the core even though he can achieve a lot of things with his force control. Jiwoo refused to get treatment because he doesn't want his force control to be in exchange. So, he asks Mr. Kaden to give him something else in change, which is his skill to change into a different creature. Kaden tells him that it's not a perfect skill, and that he can just change into a cat, but it has some side effects too when he insisted too much. Kaden agrees to make a deal with him. The next day, they both go to the hospital and Kurtin informs Jiwoo that he will treat him, and Kaden tells him that his force control is not the price for treating him. Jiwoo asks him if he is going to give him something important while Kaden wants to tell him that he is going to teach him something useless to him but is quiet because of Kurtin. Jiwoo again refuses to get the treatment as he doesn't want him to sacrifice for him, and Kaden uses his power to knock him down. Kurtin starts the treatment and Kaden goes outside to wait when Jiyoung and Hyuk reach there, and he tells them that he promised him something other than his force control to treat Jiwoo. It will take a few days for him to treat Jiwoo, so until then, he will guard this place. After some time, his friends also reach there and they are all waiting for him outside the room. A few days later, Kurtin comes outside of the Jiwoo's room where they all are waiting for him and says he has healed him. They all get very happy and Kurtin reveals that he fixed his core, but even a small impact would break it again. Also, he has to give him further treatment to return it to normal. He asks Kaden to take him home and he says he can lead the way as many times as he wants. Jiwoo tells them that most of the pain is gone and his awakened power is staying in the core, so he feels lighter. Subin is surprised that the world's best healer Kurtin healed him, as he never treats anyone when he doesn't want to, no matter how big the reward. They wonder what Mr. Kaden would be offered him in return to heal Jiwoo. Later, when Kaden comes to visit him, Jiwoo is so down as he thinks Kaden must give something important in return though, and Kaden tells him that he just taught him to turn into a cat, which is not important at all. Subin asks him if Kurtin is going to stay at his home and that he should get better fast and go home because she wants to meet and talk to him face. On the other side, Kurtin is trying to turn into a cat, but it is not working. He thinks he shouldn't be impatient as this must be a difficult skill that will take time. He observes Kaden, who looks like a perfect cat and even behaves like a cat. Caden orders him to feed the cats, and he wonders why he has to feed the cats too and thinks Caden is showing off that he can turn into a cat perfectly. Finally, he gets succeeded and turns into a white cat, and Caden is shocked that he did this too fast. Suddenly, he notices his ear and remembers Subin told him that neutered cats are ear-tipped to signify it, which means he chose that type. Kurteen is sad now because he realizes that he has chosen the wrong type of cat and asks Caden if he can turn into a different cat, but he replies this is not possible for him now. The next day they go to the hospital to visit Jiwoo for the remaining treatment. When he was examining him, he asked Jiwoo why he did force control when he told him not to use it without his permission, and Jiwoo replies he just tried for a moment and never overworked it. Kurteen says he is better now, so can go home and he will treat him at his place. Meanwhile, Jiyoung and Inhyuk come there and Caden leaves by saying he will come to pick him up later. He informs them that he is leaving the hospital today, and Mr. Kurteen will treat him at his place. Jiwoo asks Jiyoung if she must be busy them why she comes every day to visit him, and she reveals that the Awakened Academy will start in about a month. Jiwoo is worried that he can't go because he was told to not use his powers, while Jiyoung says he will definitely go. They would take him even if his core wasn't healed. Inhyuk drops him home and gives him snacks for the cats as he can't go empty-handed when he is meeting with his cats after a long time. He goes inside and warmly greets his cats. Suddenly, he sees Kurteen and is shocked that he has never seen this cat before. Caden tells him that he is Kurteen and he is in a state of shock to see such a thin and skinny cat. Jiwoo notices his ear while Mr. Caden forbids him to say anything. Jiwoo informs Caden that he will be leaving for the Awakened Academy in a month, and Caden says he will also accompany him because he is not at his best, and Kareen will also go with them though he is busy. The doorbell rings and all three enter the home and ask Jiwoo why he didn't tell them about his discharge from the hospital. They notice a new cat there and feel bad for him that he is too skinny. Subin asks Jiwoo to feed him a lot and that he is neutered too, which leaves him in a state of shock. They are feeling sad for him while Kurteen is feeling humiliated. On the other side, Suman goes to meet Suchin and informs him that the Awakened Academy will start in a month, but he thinks Baekdu will not participate this time. Suchin says Baekdu shouldn't be left out, so he will go definitely, as people will ignore Baekdu even more if he doesn't go there. He thinks his father died, but awakened ones of this country are acting like it's no big deal, even his uncle too. He promises himself to get revenge no matter what. After a few days, Kurteen is treating Jiwoo. He thinks he can now manage it as a cat body and heal someone without being a human, which means he is just an amazing person. Jiwoo feels much better than before and all of his pain is gone. He thinks to use his awakened power, but Kurteen says he can't even think about using his powers now. When they go upstairs, Kurteen is shocked to see Caden working on his punches as a cat and thinks he should be working on his healing ability as a cat. Caden asks Jiwoo to get ready as they are leaving soon, and Jiwoo revealed that everyone else left for the academy 10 days ago, and they gave him more time so he could receive treatment. Inhyuk comes to pick him up and is surprised to see another cat with him this time. He asks Jiwoo to leave their nutrition to him as he will plan a thorough and balanced diet for them from breakfast to dinner, even snacks. On the other hand, they all are anxiously waiting for him, and Subin reveals that he can't use his powers right now and they hope that he will get better soon. Meanwhile, Gangseon rushes toward them and asks them to go to the gym right now where some students are messing with them. Gangseok asks them who they are as they don't see their students, and one of them replies they are from the World Awakened Academy, and hearing that an Awakened Academy was established in this country, they came to see. Mr. Han asks the instructors of the Awakened Academy why they brought their students with them, and they say the students just wanted to see the Korean Awakened ones, so they brought them. On the other side, Gangseok forbids them that they can't pull this kind of stunt because they are from the World Awakened Academy. She asks him about the 4 strongest rookies in this country who are called the 4 are present in the academy, and that Gangseok is also one of them. Meanwhile, the instructors reach there and ask the students why they are making a fuss there. They leave the gym by saying they have to spar with them eventually, even if not now but definitely after a few days. The instructor asks Gangseok, Subin, and Jisuk that they must never collide with them. When Jiwoo reached there, he was sad that no one would meet him and went to his room. When he opens the door, he gets a welcome surprise from his group members. They inquire about his health and Jiwoo replies he still needs to work on his recovery, but he is over the worst. They arranged a snack party for him and ask him some basic questions about his health. On the other side, the World Awakened Academy's instructors want to test the level of the students there, but Mr. Han declines their offer by saying he doesn't want to pressure those who are just starting. They offer Mr. Han that if he accepts this test, they will not bring this matter up again, and the test is that the academy's students have to spar with their students. All the teachers are concerned about how they learned about their academy because they kept it strictly confidential. Miss Ko reveals they came here straight as soon as they entered the country, which means they knew the location from the start. Hayek says they are trying to have others submit to them with their hands down, so sparring is a way of showing their power. The other instructors then ask Hayek about Jiwoo's health, but they are glad now that his core was restored. Jisuk informs Jiwoo that the World Awakened Academy is going to spar with them in 3 days. He is shocked that the skinny cat is eating his treat with both hands just like the fat cat, which means he can be an awakened cat too. Jiwoo asks them what kind of place the World Awakened Academy, and Subin reveals that it's an academy run by a union organization that manages awakened ones around the world. It's a place for kids trained by the world's best awakened groups or families, and a student need to pass a tough examination and also has a strong background to enter the academy. Jiwoo advises them to stay on their toes and get ready for the sparring, but Jisuk reveals that they will not participate since they need to hide their powers. They can't get everything out in the open. When they leave, Kaden asks him to not think about anything and just focus on recovery. The next day, another student from the World Awakened Academy named Duke Grain reaches there. The next day, they make a scene at the cafeteria that the food is not worth eating, and that the academy is feeding them weird stuff on purpose, but they all are quiet as they can't fight them. Meanwhile, Duke comes there and they are shocked to see him there too. He is a prodigy of the Grain family, and one of the strongest at the World Awakened Academy. His group members do not seem happy to see him there. After a while, they were sitting on the lawn when unaffiliated students pass through there, and Arthur wonders if he has never seen them before. He calls them and asks where they take classes, and Jihai tells them that they are unaffiliated students, so they are in a different building. That is why they never crossed paths. He gets angry to hear that they are unaffiliated while they are all about to leave. Arthur calls them back and says he is not even done talking to them. The affiliated students are in the cafeteria talking about them when a student rushes and tells them that the unaffiliated kids got attacked by those guys. When they reach there, they are all shocked to see their condition, and Jihai tells them that they mocked their whole academy and mocked all of the affiliated kids too. She yells at them if they are so much better than them, then they should do something and they should be stronger than the World Awakened Academy. Jiwoo reaches there and was shocked to see their condition, that they couldn't even breathe well at first. Mr. Jang goes to their instructor and tells them that their students are badly injured due to them, while they reply that unaffiliated students picked up the fight first. Besides, this is not a big deal because they are unaffiliated students. All the instructors go to Mr. Han and tell him that their injuries are so severe that they need to stay in bed for at least half a month, and one of them even had a cardiac arrest, although it was for a moment. He says to Mr. Jang that he went to protest but refrained from doing that again, as no good will come out of provoking them. Rather, it's probably what they want regardless of how they feel. It will make things tough for the young ones who will have to lead the future. The instructors reveal that they have selected from students except for the 4, Wooin and Jiwoo, and also warn them to restrain their power as much as possible. Mr. Han asks them to again tell the students to do their best, as if the World Awakened Union considers them a threat to their interests. They will try to pressure and harm them by any means necessary. The next day, they get offended when they learn that they have excluded the 4 from the sparring, and Mr. Jang tells them they are not in their best shape and are unable to spar. She then advises her students to do their best and crush them completely, while the affiliated students are planning to do their best. The fight has started, and the opponent raised his powers and protection by wearing his awakened power like armor, and becomes so much more powerful. The student moves forward to attack him, but he blocks his attacks and punches him so badly that he gets seriously injured, and the instructors are shocked to see his bad condition. The next one is Gangseok, and this time he defeats the opponent, while their instructor thinks Gangseok is perhaps the strongest among all as he takes down their students so easily. Suchin goes next, and his opponent makes fun of that he belongs to a group that doesn't have a chairman. He gets furious about this and holds the girl by her neck and asks her why she was babbling about her father. She uses her awakened power to release herself and attacks Suchin, but he uses his gravitational force to pull her down. Her awakened power is Echo, and she uses it, but it doesn't have any impact on Suchin because he has created a protection wall against him. He then lifts her in the air and starts torturing her by saying he will twist every bone in her body when In-hyuk calls him to stop and announces his win. The instructors of the World Union are shocked that it was not just Gangseok who was strong, but all 4 of this country are on the same level as their top 10 students. They wonder how this is possible in a small country. Wooin goes next, and they think he is not one of the 4, so they are sure that their student will be able to beat him, and his opponent is confident about his win against Wooin. But all of their planning get wasted when Wooin first attacks his opponent. Wooin gathers his awakened powers and attacks his opponent, who feels like his body shattered into pieces. Wooin is the winner of this spar while all the students are so happy. They are shocked as he is not even one of the 4 and how they found such a talented awakened one. She then asks Arthur to go and that they can't be humiliated anymore. Jisuk is her opponent this time. Gangseok asks him to be careful as he is different from the others, as they all think it might be hard this time to win. Jisuk shows his awakened power, and Arthur gets happy to see that he is the one who uses the wind attributes out of the 4, and shows Jisuk his awakened power. They both attack each other with their awakened attributes, and this time Jisuk was taken down and he regrets that he took his opponent so easily. They again attack each other, and Arthur's attacking style is similar to Jisuk's. He compresses his awakened power into an extremely sharp form and uses it to cut his opponent. He makes fun of Jisuk as his fighting style is a poorer version of the Bryan family's skill. Meanwhile, a towel flew up from somewhere and falls on the floor. They are all surprised to see where the towel comes from when Subin exclaimed sorrowfully that Jisuk should give up as he can't beat that punk. Jisuk gets offended by this and she asks him to give up and get off the ring before he gets too ugly. He furiously moves toward Arthur to attack him, where he is ready to show him the difference between their powers and thinks he will crush Jisuk completely as he has always done. There is an explosion and they are unable to watch anything, but when it gets clear, Jisuk was standing in his place while Arthur's arm was bleeding so badly. Jisuk has minimized the damage by shifting Arthur's attack with the wind. Arthur is feeling so embarrassed while Jisuk is making fun that he is sulking over just one attack. He furiously attacks him again and again while Jisuk is trying to dodge them. He is shocked that Jisuk is using the wind to move freely, and this time, he thinks to take him down with a grand skill. They both are going all out and neither of them is backing off, and after a huge explosion of their powers, they both are almost equally injured. They both are again ready to spar when Hyuk asks them to stop as both of them are badly injured, so they should end their sparring match. But their teachers are feeling embarrassed as one of the strongest members of the academy drew with a student there. Jisuk says he doesn't want to end as he was so close to defeating him, while Arthur says the same, that he also wants to continue. Jisuk offers him to keep going on the spar when Hyuk hits him from behind and asks him to get down now. So, here finally comes the heroine as the heroine appears at the last moment and her opponent is Duke. He assures his teacher that he will show them the real part of them, the power of the Awakened Academy. Meanwhile, Mr. Caden and Mr. Curtin are watching the match while eating snacks, and Mr. Caden suggests he should eat snacks while watching a fight as it's the most entertaining thing. Subin tells Duke that the guys before her were the weakest and she is the stronger among all when Seongha is getting embarrassed by her. She attacks her opponent with ice when he creates a shield in front of him and breaks the ice. She again moves forward to attack him, but he counterattacks by using super speed by dodging her attack, and Subin gets injured. All of them are shocked that he can use super speed because they never heard, and this thing makes him stronger and even harder to deal with. He is attacking her with his super speed when Subin is trying to dodge him, and it is getting hard for her to handle Duke's attacks because they all are coming with so much speed. He is using similar super speed, but he is specialized in long-range attacks, which makes him harder to deal with. Jisuk shouts from his place and asks Subin to give up and come back, and she asks him to shut his mouth. She furiously gathers her powers and freezes the floor, which will restrict Duke to use his super speed due to the reduction of the friction. Duke says it will not work on him. Subin creates a wall of ice against him so that he can't move or use his awakened powers. Duke breaks the wall and comes outside, and creates a shield of his awakened power around him. They both played their finals cards, and when they struck, there was a sudden explosion and Subin gets seriously injured. Duke uses a sharp strip of his power and hits Subin, which makes her fall to the ground, while she is unable to gather her power properly. The teachers say they should stop the sparring match as it feels too dangerous, and Hyuk asks them to stop. But Duke was ready to attack Subin with so much of his power and is about to kill him when there is a sudden flash and Jiwoo gets disappeared by taking Subin from his place. They are all shocked that they couldn't even catch up their eyes on his speed. Even Duke couldn't seem to react. Subin shouts at him why he jumped in as he shouldn't use his powers, and Jiwoo says he couldn't stop himself when he saw her in danger. Duke thinks super speed is his power and he made a tremendous effort, and achieved a perfect balance between his strength and speed, but Jiwoo is faster than him. Jiwoo interrupted the sparring match so no one can blame Duke for attacking him and throwing an attack on him while Jiwoo gets disappeared and reaches him within no time. Duke asks him who he is, and when he tells them his name, Arthur and the other teachers think they never heard this name before. Hyuk comes forward and apologizes to them since their students interrupted the match. This will be counted as their loss, and announces the win of Duke Grain. Jisuk makes fun of Subin that she calls herself the heroine and yet lost the match, and gets all roughed up when none of them lost. Duke calls Jiwoo and says he wants to spar with him, and since he ruined his match so he doesn't have a right to refuse. Hyuk comes forward and says this is impossible as Jiwoo recently suffered a serious injury and is still recovering, so he is in no condition to spar, but their teacher says Hyuk said the same thing about the 4 earlier. They leave by saying that they will spar in 3 days, and Hyuk thinks things get out of hand. Jiwoo looks at Mr. Kaden and Kirshin, who are furiously watching him as he used his powers without their permission. 13 wants to punch him for using his powers, and he is apologizing to them by saying luckily, his core doesn't hurt. He tried force control too, and there seemed to be no problem. 13 says this happened just because he was the one who healed him, and now Jiwoo makes sorts of problems just like his mentor, but he couldn't do the sparring match in 3 days. Kaden says if 13 can't do anything about it then he should go and give up, as he says it is impossible to even for him. He should stop insisting and just give up because the great Kurteen has said this is impossible even for him, while Kurteen says when he said that he can't do it. Kaden says there is no shame in admitting what he can't do, which makes him angry, and he tells Jiwoo that his core has recovered, but he told him not to use his powers because he may strain his core too much and cause a problem again. He says he will make it possible for Jiwoo to fight in 3 days. On the other side, all the teachers apologize to Mr. Han, who thinks they may underestimate their students and put limits on their future. Ha says the kids have become united because of this incident, and now this is their duty to protect them from now on. After a while, Jiwoo goes outside and sees Mr. Han there. He goes to greet him and he asks him if it will be okay for him to use his powers, and he tells him that Kurteen will get him shaped for one sparring match. Mr. Han says he wants to teach him one skill before the match. He assures him that this skill will be helpful for him in utilizing his powers, while Jiwoo refuses to learn the skill because he is not his apprentice and doesn't seem right to him. Mr. Han starts laughing to hear his excuse and says many awakened ones have wanted to learn from him. They were even dying to get at least something from him, and Jiwoo has turned down him twice. The skill he wanted to teach him is created by him, so there is no need for Jiwoo to feel pressured. And then Jiwoo bows before him and requests him to teach the skill. He takes him to the gym and puts his power into Jiwoo and asks him to remember its flow, dynamics, and path, of course. After that, once he goes to his room, Kaden asks him why he is so late, and he tells them that the principal has taught him a new way of moving his powers and that the skill will make his punches much more powerful when he strikes an opponent. Jiwoo sits down and starts doing force control, and they both are shocked that Mr. Han has taught him a part of his force control. 3 days have passed while Jiwoo and Duke are ready to spar, and all the students and teachers are gathered at the gym. In the meantime, a boy with a big black cat appears at the gate of the academy, and he seems to be a student of the World Awakened Academy. Duke comes forward and shakes hands with Jiwoo and wishes him good luck for the match. Arthur thinks many people fall for his gentle attitude, but he is only being laid back because of his strong power and background. But once someone gets in his way, he just drops that attitude and gets brutal. Their fight has started and they move toward each other to attack. Duke is fighting in close combat while Jiwoo is just dodging his attacks with his speed. He then increases his speed, and Duke is shocked to see that he can increase and decrease his speed with as well. Jiwoo never needed to be faster when he faced other opponents, but this time, the opponent is catching up with his speed and he needs to bring more speed. Duke also increases his speed and all of them can't see them fighting as their bodies look blurry. Jiwoo increases his speed and disappeared from Duke's sight and is cornering him with his speed. Duke increases his speed, but Jiwoo got disappeared and appears from his behind and is about to attack when Duke pushes him back and thinks he has been overpowered by an unaffiliated student. His attacks are definitely following Jiwoo, and if he hadn't seen his sparring with Subin, this match would have been harder for him. Jiwoo tries to attack him again and again, but Duke is continuously dodging them all and gets injured. Duke says his attacks will not work on him, but Jiwoo comes forward and his speed becomes more faster and gets disappeared from his sight. He then punches him so badly that gets Duke on his knees. Duke furiously gets up and says he could come near him because he allowed him to, but now he will tell him his real place. The teacher is happy that Duke is going to fight seriously now, and Jiwoo is done for. His energy would be difficult for Jiwoo. Duke says he can't come near him or gets out of his sight this time, and his speed will not work on him. He directed his powers against Jiwoo's movements, and at this rate, he can't get through, and this is the time to use what Mr. Han taught him. He reaches the Duke and uses his last play card, the electric current, and there was a huge spark. Everyone is in a state of shock when In-hyuk announces the win of Jiwoo Seo, and there is a wave of happiness goes through the students. Mr. Han is shocked that Jiwoo definitely used the technique that he taught him, but he is able to use it in real combat in such a short time. All the students cheered him up, and the teachers are happy the way all the other students are approving and being happy for him. The students and teachers of the World Awakened Academy are shocked that they have lost to this kind of place. After some time, Kurteen examines his condition and he reveals that his core is a mess and it looks like it is going to break any minute. Caden appreciates him for the spar and asks about his last punch, and Jiwoo tells him that he used the principal's technique to throw his last punch. Caden reveals that what Mr. Han taught him is part of his force control that has to do with moving power, while Jiwoo is in shock to hear this. He gets up from his seat and direct rushes toward the lawn where Mr. Han is and tells him that Mr. Caden tells him that he taught him his force control. He bows before him and thanks him for whatever he has done for him. In-hyuk informs other teachers about the arrival of Cain Luderane, and they wonder why Duke Grain and Cain arrive separately from the others. Moreover, they have received information that an awakened academy in a neighboring country recently suffered great damage, and they believe that it has to do with the recent incident. It looks like Duke and Cain moved separately and made a fuss at an awakened academy in a nearby country. Miss Ko reveals that the animal he brought in is not just a regular black panther. It's a mystical creature only given to a direct descent of the family who is influential, and normal animals are no match for its overwhelming power. On the other side, Isol is walking with her pet dog Dury when Cain reaches there and asks her if she has the ability to talk to the animals. His black panther comes forward to attack Dury when Isol asks him to stop, and Cain challenges a spar to Isol as they both have the same commune ability. Isol refuses him as combat is not her specialty, but he says her dog can fight in place of her. Mr. Caden and Kurteen are taking a nap under a tree when the Black Panther rushes toward them and going to attack, but Dury comes forward and covers them. Cain says Dury attacks first, so now he can't stop Lancelot from attacking him. He jumps upon Dury and he gets seriously injured by just one attack. Mr. Caden jumps up from his place and attacks Lancelot with his paw. He bows before him immediately. Cain is shocked that Lancelot is better than any other animal, and now he just lost to a fat cat like this. Meanwhile, Jiwoo appears there and he now gets that he is the boy who defeated Duke in a spar and thinks he gave the fat cat his powers. Isol thanks him for helping Dury while he is unable to understand what is happening there. Cain comes forward and asks him to spar with him at this instant. The teachers get the news that their student is sparring with the student of the Awakened Academy, and now they are all rushing toward the gym. When they all reach there, they are shocked to see Jiwoo as the sparring opponent. In-hyuk comes forward and asks their teacher to stop because Jiwoo is not in a condition to spar again, but even they can't stop Cain. Cain says they don't need to worry as the sparring is with the animal communion ability, but they think it is going to be difficult for Jiwoo and the cat. Cain this time uses his awakened power to give it to Lancelot, and his size is going to increase and becomes huge in an instant. Cain asks Lancelot to swallow up the cat while everyone is watching, but when he is going to attack Caden, he gets him away by using a cat punch. Cain shouts at him why he is losing to some fat cat and asks him to hold himself and attack again. Lancelot again jumps up to attack Caden, but he is too fast that he doesn't give him a chance to fight back and punches him away, and gives him an electric shock that he falls to the ground. Cain and all the teachers are in a state of shock that the mystical creature is lost to a mere cat. In-hyuk says this is just possible because it's a cat, and they just got a peek into the great potential of cats, and nothing is greater than cats. Mr. Caden really enjoyed beating Lancelot as he was a hard opponent for him as a cat, but Kurteen says he should be more focused on how to get back to his original form. Deep inside he is getting jealous of his powers. Someone knocked at Jiwoo's door. It is Arthur at the door, and has come there to introduce himself properly. He saw him knock Duke down, and even he heard that Jiwoo can beat Cain too, but he notices Jiwoo looks gentler than he thought. He thanks Jiwoo because of his win as he defeated Duke and Cain, but he couldn't. After that, Kurteen reveals that the two of them lost to him while Arthur drew against the 4, and as a result, Arthur is seen as more capable than the others. The professors of the World Awakened Academy are planning to bring Woo-in and Ji-woo with them because they are unaffiliated, so it will not a big problem for them to take with them. Kane is so offended that he has lost to a boy even though the communion ability is not his main ability, and when the family finds out about this, his position will be in danger. Now, the only explanation that comes to his mind is that the cat is special, and he will take that cat with him. Subin, Jisuk, and Woo-in got the news of Caden's spar and now rush toward his room while Jisuk thinks there is nothing to surprise as the mystical creature is no match for the fat cat and now he really has a bad feeling about that skinny cat. Subin asks Ji-woo if he can spar with him using his commune ability while Jisuk forbids her by saying she will going to die. He is trying to save her life but she thinks he is looking down on him because he lost to Duke and starts to beat him. Woo-in reveals to them that Isol is going back suddenly because her dog is badly injured and she is going back to treat him. Ji-woo goes to meet her and asks her about Duri's condition and she reveals that one of his eyes is badly injured so it might go blind. Ji-woo and Mr. Caden both are sad about Duri's condition when Kurteen suddenly comes back to his human form and Ji-woo asks him if he can heal Duri's eye. He agrees and says it hasn't been long since the dog got the injury, so it should be possible to treat him as the great Kurteen. Ji-woo thinks he doesn't have anything to offer in return that suits his interest. Kurteen says he can heal if Caden makes a deal with him, that is to teach him the cat punch. It was not a big deal for Mr. Caden so he agrees immediately. After that, he orders everyone to leave the building and turns into cat form again as this is part of his training and he wants to see how it will turn out if he treats animals in this body. All the students are waiting outside the academy and Isol wonders why Kurteen is treating Duri as it's difficult to receive treatment from him and Ji-woo gives her the reason that he loves the animals. Arthur goes to Duke and tells him about the defeat of Kane, and that Ji-woo has the ability to commune with animals too, while Duke thinks he lost to him because he didn't have a good grasp of his abilities. On the other side, Kane is looking for Mr. Caden and thinks he should sneak into Ji-woo's room. He finds Kurteen in his way and thinks the cat belongs to Ji-woo too, so he should take him for now. He uses his awakened power to control Kurteen's mind but it doesn't have any effect on him. He gets up and is about to leave when Kane gets offended and calls him ugly and neutered. Kurteen becomes furious to hear this and jumps upon him and punches him until he becomes unconscious. After that, In-hyuk reveals to the other teachers that Kane has a short memory loss as the security guards found him walking around the academy with a blank look. They think this is due to his defeat in the recent match that his family's mystical creature got defeated by a cat. The instructors of the World Awakened Academy go to Woo-in and he offers to join their World Academy, but he leaves them by saying he doesn't want to join any academy. He orders the other professor to deal with Woo-in according to their next plan. Meanwhile, Ji-woo comes there too as they have called him to. They make him the same offer and ask him not to waste their time in this small country and come out to the World Academy. Ji-woo gives them the same answer as Woo-in and tells them that he likes this place and doesn't want to go anywhere else. Next, they go to Jisuk and he also declines their offer. After that, they went to Subin, Gangseok, and Suchin one by one, but they all decline their offer by making lame excuses. Ji-woo went to see Duri and he all recover now. Isol thanks him for what he did for Duri. She knows that if it wasn't for Ji-woo, he wouldn't have treated Duri. Meanwhile, Subin, Jisuk, and Woo-in come up there and she runs away from there with Duri. Ji-woo tells them about Kurteen and how he treated Duri, while Subin is impressed by both Caden and Kurteen and wonders whom she should choose. Woo-in tells Ji-woo about the professors of the World Awakened Academy, that they have come to visit him and offer him to go with them, while Jisuk and Subin reveal that they come to the also, and now they are all relieved that they refuse their offer. The students and the professors of the World Awakened Academy are now ready to leave, and while leaving he thinks they will destroy the future of their students and orders the other instructor to get rid of them all. At night, when Ji-woo was walking, he appears from behind and hides his face in the mask, and goes to target Ji-woo first. Suddenly, someone comes from behind and attacks him, and he is shocked to see Amyong there. He asks him why he is there and Amyong reveals they both are here for the same reason. He asks him if his target is Ji-woo, but he attacks him from behind and says his target is the people who are behind Ji-woo. He asks him why he is protecting Ji-woo and Amyong states he owes him a debt. Ji-woo was resting somewhere when Amyong reaches there and asks him about his health. Ji-woo gets scared to see him and asks him what brings him there, and he advises him to stay alert as Caden's apprentice so that he won't be in danger because of him. Ji-woo goes to Mr. Caden and tells him about Amyong and that he told him to get strong enough to tell everyone that he is Caden's apprentice. The next day, all the unaffiliated students get discharged from the hospital, and when they come to the gym, the affiliated students students were exercising there. They come to them and ask them about their health and appreciate them for they stood up against the students of the World Academy. Jiwoo comes there and Gangseok says he will spar with him once he is fully recovered. But Jisuk says if he wants to spar with Jiwoo, he has to beat Suchin first, then beat Duke and Kane before challenging him. After a while, Jiyoung arrives there and she is happy to see the kids become united because of that incident. Mr. Han calls her and tells her that their country will be kept in check by many forces, which is why they need to join hands. And as a leader representing Korea, her burden will increase even more. After that, she is about to leave the academy when Jiwoo calls her from behind and she appreciates him for his recent matches against Duke and Kane. She says to Jiwoo that he should be proud of his abilities and asks him why he declined their offer to join the academy. Jiwoo replies he likes this place, and the people hers and wants to get stronger with the people he likes. The next day, Jiwoo is training in the gym when Mr. Han appears there and is shocked to see that he is moving his power using the method he taught him as if he has been using it for a long time. He has accomplished this much in a short amount of time. Jiwoo asks him if he gets disappointed to see that he makes a little progress with his method while Mr. Han says he is doing wonderful, and he is quite surprised to see how he has come this far. Kaden and Kurteen come to Mr. Han and Kaden asks him why he taught Jiwoo part of his force control and he replies that he didn't know what came to his mind and that he taught him the method. They all set out on a journey to go back when In Hyuk receives a call and gets informed that one of the world's top 10 Veramont Patrick has come to see Jiyoung. He states he doesn't have to come there to fight, and come along with his grandson, and heard that Jiyoung has won against an awakened one in the world's top 10. He thinks Jiyoung will be the perfect sparring partner for his grandson's ranking debut match, but now when he has seen her, his mind got changes, and asks her to become part of his family. He gives her a marriage proposal for his grandson and being married to him will make her a legitimate member of the Patrick family, which means nobody will ever dare to mess with her or her organization. When suddenly, the door opens and Jisuk enters the room within Hyuk. Jiyoung asks him to step outside for now, but Mr. Veramont says he should be there when they are going to become family soon while Jisuk is unable to understand what he is saying and asks Jiyoung who tells him about the marriage proposal by them. Jisuk tells them that